Section 31 of The Wonderful Adventures of Nils. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Reading by Lars Rolander. The Wonderful Adventures of Nils by Selma Lagerlöf. Translated by Velma Swanston Howard. Gorgo, the Eagle. In the mountain glen. Far up among the mountains of Lapland there was an old eagle's nest on a ledge, which projected from a high cliff. The nest was made of dry twigs of pine and spruce, interlaced one with another until they formed a perfect network. Year by year the nest had been repaired and strengthened. It was about 2 meters wide and nearly as high as a Laplander's hut. The cliff on which the eagle's nest was situated towered above a big glen, which was inhabited in summer by a flock of wild geese, as it was an excellent refuge for them. It was so secluded between cliffs that not many knew of it, even among the Laplanders themselves. In the heart of this glen there was a small round lake, in which was an abundance of food for the tiny goslings, and on the tufted lake shores, which were covered with osier bushes and dwarfed birches, the geese found fine nesting places. In all ages eagles had lived on the mountain and geese in the glen. Every year the former carried off a few of the latter, but they were very careful not to take so many that the wild geese would be afraid to remain in the glen. The geese in their turn found the eagles quite useful. They were robbers, to be sure, but they kept other robbers away. 2 years before Nils Holgersson travelled with the wild geese, the old leader goose, Akka from Kebnekaise, was standing at the foot of the mountain slope, looking toward the eagle's nest. The eagles were in the habit of starting on their chase soon after sunrise. During the summers that Akka had lived in the glen, she had watched every morning for their departure, to find if they stopped in the glen to hunt, or if they flew beyond it to other hunting grounds. She did not have to wait long before the two eagles left the ledge on the cliff. Stately and terror striking, they soared into the air. They directed their course toward the plain, and Akka breathed a sigh of relief. The old leader goose's days of nesting and rearing of young were over, and during the summer she passed the time going from one goose range to another, giving counsel regarding the brooding and caring of the young. Aside from this, she kept an eye out not only for eagles, but also for mountain fox and owls, and all other enemies who were a menace to the wild geese and their young. About noontime Akka began to watch for the eagles again. This she had done every day during all the summers that she had lived in the glen. She could tell at once by their flight if their hunt had been successful, and in that event she felt relieved for the safety of those who belonged to her. But on this particular day she had not seen the eagles return. "I must be getting old and stupid," she thought, when she had waited a time for them. "The eagles have probably been home this long while." In the afternoon she looked toward the cliff again, expecting to see the eagles perched on the rocky ledge where they usually took their afternoon rest. Toward evening, when they took their bath in the Dale lake, she tried again to get sight of them, but failed. Again she bemoaned the fact that she was growing old. She was so accustomed to having the eagles on the mountain above her that she could not imagine the possibility of their not having returned. The following morning Akka was awake in good season to watch for the eagles, but she did not see them. On the other hand, she heard in the morning stillness a cry that sounded both angry and plaintive, and it seemed to come from the eagle's nest. "Can there possibly be anything amiss with the eagles?" she wondered. She spread her wings quickly and rose so high that she could perfectly well look down into the nest. There she saw neither of the eagles. There was no one in the nest save a little half fledged eaglet, who was screaming for food. Akka sank down toward the eagle's nest, slowly and reluctantly. It was a gruesome place to come to. It was plain what kind of robber folk lived there. In the nest and on the cliff ledge lay bleached bones, bloody feathers, pieces of skin, hares' heads, birds' beaks, and the tufted claws of grouse. The eaglet, who was lying in the midst of this, was repulsive to look upon, with his big, gaping bill, his awkward, downclad body, and his underdeveloped wings, where the prospective quills stuck out like thorns. At last Akka conquered her repugnance, and alighted on the edge of the nest, at the same time glancing about her anxiously in every direction, for each second she expected to see the old eagles coming back. "It is well that someone has come at last!" cried the baby eagle. "Fetch me some food at once!" "Well, well, don't be in such haste," said Akka. "Tell me first where your father and mother are." "That's what I should like to know myself. They went off yesterday morning, and left me a lemming to live upon while they were away. You can believe that was eaten long ago. It's a shame for mother to let me starve in this way." Akka began to think that the eagles had really been shot, and she reasoned that if she were to let the eaglets starve, she might perhaps be rid of the whole robber tribe for all time. But it went very much against her not to succour a deserted young one so far as she could.
"Why do you sit there and stare?" snapped the eaglet. "Didn't you hear me say I want food?"
Akka spread her wings and sank down to the little lake in the glen. A moment later she returned to the eagle's nest with a salmon trout in her bill. The eaglet flew into a temper when she dropped the fish in front of him.
"Do you think I can eat such stuff?"
he shrieked, pushing it aside, and trying to strike Akka with his bill.
"Fetch me a willow grouse or a lemming, do you hear?"
Akka stretched her head forward and gave the eaglet a sharp nip in the neck. "Let me say to you," remarked the old goose, "that if I am to procure food for you, you must be satisfied with what I give you. Your father and mother are dead, and from them you can get no help. But if you want to lie here and starve to death while you wait for grouse and lemming, I shall not hinder you." When Akka had spoken her mind, she promptly retired, and did not show her face in the eagle's nest again for some time. But when she did return, the eaglet had eaten the fish, and when she dropped another in front of him, he swallowed it at once, although it was plain that he found it very distasteful. Akka had imposed upon herself a tedious task. The old eagles never appeared again, and she alone had to procure for the eaglet all the food he needed. She gave him fish and frogs, and he did not seem to fare badly on this diet, but grew big and strong. He soon forgot his parents, the eagles, and fancied that Akka was his real mother. Akka, in turn, loved him as if he had been her own child. She tried to give him a good bringing up, and to cure him of his wildness and overbearing ways. After a fortnight, Akka observed that the time was approaching for her to moult and put on a new feather dress, so as to be ready to fly. For a whole moon she would be unable to carry food to the baby eaglet, and he might starve to death. So Akka said to him one day: "Gorgo, I can't come to you any more with fish. Everything depends now upon your pluck, which means, can you dare to venture into the glen, so I can continue to procure food for you? You must choose between starvation and flying down to the glen, but that, too, may cost you your life." Without a second's hesitation, the eaglet stepped upon the edge of the nest. Barely taking the trouble to measure the distance to the bottom, he spread his tiny wings and started away. He rolled over and over in space, but nevertheless made enough use of his wings to reach the ground almost unhurt. Down there in the